We tend to imagine our ancient ancestors as mighty hunters, spear in hand, chasing down great beasts across the plains. It is a thrilling image, and there is truth in it, but it is also dangerously incomplete, and it hides the real and far more interesting answer to a simple question. What did ancient humans actually eat day after day to stay alive in a world without farms, shops, and stored food? The honest answer overturns a lot of what we think we know, and it reveals our ancestors not as one-track meat eaters, but as some of the most flexible, resourceful, opportunistic feeders the planet has ever produced. Today, we are going to explore the real ancient diet and why our survival as a species may owe as much to humble roots and gathered plants as it does to the hunt. Let us begin by dismantling the myth of the great hunter. Yes, ancient humans hunted, and meat was a prized and important food, but hunting is difficult, dangerous, and unreliable. A hunter could go out for days and come back with nothing. If a band had depended on big game alone, they would have starved again and again. The reality is that for many ancient peoples, especially in warmer climates, the steady, dependable foundation of the diet was not meat at all. It was the food that women, children, and the whole group gathered: roots, tubers, nuts, seeds, fruits, berries, leaves, and other plant foods made up a huge share of what people actually ate. Gathering was less glamorous than hunting, but it was reliable, and reliability is what keeps a group alive through the lean times. The plant gatherers, as much as the hunters, were the reason humanity survived. This is why anthropologists often prefer the term hunter-gatherer, with the gathering given equal weight. In many studied foraging societies, gathered plant foods provided the majority of the calories, with hunted meat as a vital but less predictable supplement. The image of the lone hunter feeding the tribe gives way to a richer picture of a whole community, each contributing different foods, pooling their gathering and their hunting into a shared and balanced diet. But to really understand the ancient diet, you have to understand its single most defining feature, which is variety. Our ancestors were not specialists locked into one type of food. They were generalists, opportunists, eaters of almost anything the landscape offered. This is one of the great secrets of human success. A panda can only eat bamboo, and if the bamboo fails, the panda is in deep trouble. But a human band could eat roots in one season, fruit in another, fish from a river, eggs from a nest, shellfish from a shore, honey from a hive, nuts from the forest, and meat when the hunt succeeded. This astonishing flexibility meant that when one food source failed, our ancestors could simply switch to another. It allowed humans to spread into nearly every environment on Earth, from frozen tundra to tropical forest to arid desert, because in each place they could find something to eat. The ancient diet was not a fixed menu. It was a moving, shifting response to whatever the land and the season provided. Consider the range of what was on the menu. Along coasts and rivers, ancient humans harvested an enormous bounty from the water: shellfish, fish, crabs, and other aquatic foods that were rich in nutrients and often easier to gather than land animals were to hunt. Some researchers believe these rich coastal and freshwater foods played an important role in feeding the growing human brain. In forests and grasslands, there were nuts and seeds packed with fat and protein, and tubers and roots buried in the ground, full of the carbohydrate energy a hungry body and brain craved. There were insects, too, an often overlooked but highly nutritious food that many ancient peoples almost certainly ate, just as many traditional societies still do today. There was honey,
a rare and treasured burst of pure energy that humans went to great lengths to find.
And there were the eggs of birds and reptiles, fruits and berries in season, and edible leaves and plants of countless kinds. Then there is the tool that transformed all of this raw bounty into something far more powerful, and that tool was fire. Cooking, which our ancestors had mastered long before, changed the ancient diet completely. It made tough roots soft and digestible, made meat safer and easier to chew, killed parasites and dangerous microbes, and unlocked far more usable energy from food than the body could extract from it raw. A raw tuber might be nearly inedible, but roasted in the coals it became a soft, nourishing meal. Cooking did not just add flavor, it extended the range of what humans could eat and how much energy they could get from it. And many scientists believe this extra energy was part of what allowed our brains to grow so large. The ancient kitchen was a fire, and that fire was one of the most important survival tools our ancestors ever possessed. Knowledge was just as important as the food itself. Knowing what to eat in a wild landscape is a matter of life and death, because nature is full of plants that look nourishing but are deadly poisonous, mushrooms that can kill, and berries that bring sickness instead of nutrition. Ancient humans carried in their minds a vast, detailed library of knowledge about their environment, which plants were safe and which were dangerous, where to find water-rich tubers in a dry season, when the fruit would ripen, where the fish would run, how to prepare foods that were toxic when raw but safe once processed. This was not written down anywhere. It lived in human memory and was passed from generation to generation through teaching and shared daily life. A child grew up learning the edible world from the adults around them, inheriting thousands of years of hard-won knowledge about how to eat without dying. This living encyclopedia of food knowledge was as essential to survival as any spear. The ancient diet also followed the rhythms of the seasons. Our ancestors did not eat the same things all year round. They ate what was available, moving with the cycles of nature, feasting when food was abundant, and tightening their belts when it was scarce. In times of plenty, when a hunt succeeded or a patch of fruit ripened, they ate richly. In hard seasons, they fell back on less desirable but reliable foods, the roots and tubers that were always there underground. This feast and scarcity rhythm shaped human biology in ways that still affect us today. Our bodies evolved to store energy when food was abundant, to carry us through the times when it was not, a survival mechanism that served our ancestors brilliantly in a world of uncertainty. When you put all of this together, a clear and powerful picture emerges. Ancient humans stayed alive not by being the best hunters, but by being the most adaptable eaters. They survived through variety, through the steady reliability of gathered plant foods, through the energy unlocked by fire, through a deep inherited knowledge of their environment, and through their willingness to eat almost anything the world offered. They were not specialists, they were generalists, and that flexibility was their superpower. There is a lesson in this that reaches all the way to our own plates. The modern human body is the product of this long, varied, adaptable ancient diet. We are descended from beings who thrived on diversity, on whole foods gathered and hunted and dug from the earth, on a constantly shifting menu that followed the seasons. Our ancestors ate to stay alive in the most resourceful way imaginable, refusing to depend on any single food, taking what the land gave and making the most of it. The next time you imagine the deep human past, set aside the lone hunter for a moment and picture instead the whole band, hands full of roots and berries and shellfish and nuts gathered around a fire that made it all edible. That, far more than any single great hunt, is the meal that carried our species through the ages and brought us here.